Hey everybody, welcome to today's video. So you may be able to guess what's going on today from this collection of parts in front of you. This is my 3D printed drone, well mostly 3D printed drone that I've been building. It's actually a project that's been going on for quite a number of years. I started it a long time ago. I bought motors and the electronic speed controllers, and I've kind of built it up from there and done a few different iterations of it. So what you're seeing in front of you here is the most recent iteration, the main part being this 3D printed chassis that I designed. So this drone kind of has worked a bit in the past. Basically, it can kind of take off and it can, sort of move around a little bit, but then it almost always catastrophically crashes. So you can actually see on my channel, if you go back to, I think it's the very first video I ever uploaded, was a short video of just a compilation of slow-mo crashes of this drone. So you can go and check that out if you want to see some gratuitous crashing. But basically, yeah, the design of this drone, never ideal. Like, I kind of built this as a test bed kind of platform that would be version 1 of the thing, to prove that I could make a system that I could have controlled with the microcontroller, and I could build out all the electronics and that it would work as a flying craft. So it kind of works, but also kind of doesn't. So, but there was a lot of mechanical issues with this original design, which I think were contributing towards the fact that it wasn't working very well. So I'm starting a new project to address some of those, and I've actually already done the majority of the work. So what this is going to be is mostly a mechanical rebuild, and there comes in the new chassis that I've built. So this is a good bit bigger in terms of footprint, but yeah, in terms of the distance between the blades as well is a little bit bigger. But the main part is the structure is a hell of a lot more rigid than this structure was, so that is going to be better for the flight characteristics of it. Also, one big problem that this guy had was the battery, which is the single heaviest part of it, would basically just kind of slot in here, and I used to cable tie it in place, but it used to move quite a lot, and you see there's like a lot of slop in here. So if this moves even a small amount, it really throws off the balance of the drone, which is something that I didn't really realize going into it, that they need to be pretty well balanced on their own before the software can kick in and make sure that they fly nice and balanced. So this has a nice battery compartment built into it, which should hold the battery in a good solid position, and should be pretty centered with the center of mass for the vehicle. So that is, yeah. So what we're going to do, we're going to rebuild the whole drone. We're going to reassemble it from this original chassis. All these parts are going to go onto this guy, and we're going to test it out. So the only other thing that I'm rebuilding is some of the power distribution system. So there was an old wiring loom that I had connected up to this battery, which powered the whole thing, and it wasn't very good. So some of the electrical connections weren't great in there. There's also some issues with the connections from the motors to the drivers. So I'm going to also redo those and make them a little bit more solid. And yeah, so basically I'm going to be taking all these parts, reassembling them into this guy, and then we're going to test it out and see what happens. I'm expecting it to crash, but I'm expecting that I'll be able to actually tune the PID controller in my controller here to make it work a bit better anyway. So we'll see what happens. I have no idea. I think if it doesn't work, I may just abandon this project and leave it there. It looks kind of cool at least, so that's something, even if it doesn't work. But yeah, we'll try anyway and see what happens. So I'm gonna get working on reassembling all this stuff, redoing some wiring, and you guys can watch it. Okay, so you've just watched me struggle there for a little bit putting these connectors on. So apparently what I learned today is that me and DuPont connectors are not friends. So, but I got there. This one anyway works. The motor and the motor driver, and they click together nicely. So I'm not certain if this is a good way for these to be connected, as in, I don't know how much current you're supposed to put through these things really, but there is a rationale for this. It is that I want these to be connected with a nice positive connection, which this is. I also want it to be reversible, and that is 2 pins to be reversible. And there's an important nuance there when you're controlling brushless DC motors. Depending on how you're controlling them, a convenient way to reverse the direction of them is to flip any 2 wires around. So with the DuPont connector, I can unplug it, flip it over, plug it back in, and nicely the middle pin will always stay connected and the 2 outside pins will be flipped, which will change the direction of the rotation. So when you're building a drone, you might know or might not know that there's basically all the motors don't spin in the same direction. So there's pairs of motors that spin in opposite directions. So it's kind of a bit fiddly when you wire this whole thing up if you realize that you've have them spinning in the wrong direction. A very simple way to get them to go the opposite direction is to just flip the connector around 180 degrees. So that's the rationale behind this particular set of connections. So these 2 seem okay. I'm happy enough with those. My first 2 that I did, I made an absolute disaster with these. I realized on the second one some of the stuff I was doing wrong. I wasn't crimping the connectors down to the right size, which meant that they were a little bit too big to fit inside this once they were crimped. And on this guy, I didn't expose enough copper on this guy because the insulation on these wires is a little bit thicker than it probably should be, so I had to just do more copper up inside it to clamp onto it. So I'm going to just redo that one. I don't know if I can redo this one because it's I don't know if I have enough wire really to redo that one, but I think it might get away with it. This one might work if I can plug it into will it plug in? Yeah, it plugs in to a factory made one. So Jesus, they look bad. But they go in. So okay, I think I'm gonna leave the motor on that one alone. It's just a bit dodgy. And then I'm gonna just redo this one, and then I'll redo the rest of them, and that'll be the end of it then. Okay, so you guys just saw me spend some time wiring up a bunch of these little DuPont connectors onto the motor drivers and the male ends onto the motors themselves. And I questioned whether this was a good idea or not. Turns out it wasn't. So I don't know exactly why. Maybe I suck at putting on DuPont connectors and I got all of the connectors didn't crimp proper contacts onto them, or else they're just not suitable for this purpose, but essentially they don't work. So that's a bit of a pain. I assembled them all, and I would have thought it probably would have been smart for me to test one of them before I went and assembled all of them, but I didn't. I assembled all of them and they don't work. So what I've done here is I've resorted to some solder, which is also not really what I wanted to do because I did want to be able to reverse them. So I'm not entirely certain what I'm going to do about this. One annoying thing is these motors have very thin gauge wire coming out of them, and this is quite thick gauge wire, so if I wanted to get some crimping connectors, I think it's going to be hard to find a match set of crimping connectors that will work for both of these different gauges and give me nice positive grabs and stuff. So yeah, I'm not entirely certain what I'm going to do next with this, but what I may do is I may just test each one as I go and figure out the directions, and then I might solder them to connect them permanently, number them so that I know which spins in which direction. So as long as I have 2 sets to spin in one direction, 2 sets to spin in the other direction, I can reposition them around to get them the way I want them to go. So that might just be what I have to do next. Didn't really want to do that, but yeah, I think that's probably going to be the next thing that I have to do. But the little power distribution board I made works, so I'm happy enough with that. Yeah, the only thing I have to do is get these guys to work properly. So I'm going to do that next. And this is something I am definitely doing begrudgingly. I know I say that quite a bit, but it's actually true in this case. So I'm going to do them up, I'm going to mark these, number them, and yeah, that'll be the next thing. And then I can go ahead and assemble the whole thing once I have that done. Okay, time for some truth. The drone project is dead. Yes. And it's dead in that I used my ham hands, managed to basically destroy one of the motors. So you saw previously I was using those DuPont connectors. Yeah, it turned out my concerns were warranted. They did not work. So I had to cut all the DuPont connectors off, and I was attempting to go and just read and just physically solder every one of the connections. But in doing that and cutting one of the motor's wires, it ended up being very short, and then I was pulling on some of the where it connects to the windings, and I managed to just strip the entire thing apart, and a bunch of the windings unwound on the motor. So I'm counting that guy as dead, which means that the whole project is dead. Now, killing a motor doesn't necessarily, mean that the whole project had to die, but I was building the project based on all the parts that I already had, and honestly, I just wasn't really enjoying it anymore. So when that happened, that was the last straw. It had been kicking my ass in other ways, the whole project had. So yeah, that's it. I think there's a good lesson in that. You don't need to keep killing yourself making a project if you're not really enjoying doing it, and it's just not really working out. No point killing yourself for that. I am a big believer in perseverance and keeping going and pushing through to get projects done. But in the end of the day, with this stuff, I'm literally an amateur, so I'm not going to kill myself doing it. So yeah, I ended up with a bunch of parts left over, a few RC components, some motors, some propellers, so I decided to make something. But before I tell you about what I made, I want to tell you about something else that I did recently. So a couple of weeks ago, I was asked to be a guest on the Irish Makers podcast. So that just got released the other day. You can go and check that out, and you can head over to their YouTube. I'll have a link in the description there. But yeah, you should check them out. The guys are great. I had really good fun doing the podcast with them, and you should just follow them, subscribe to them. They're doing great work. It's really, really good. So yeah, head over, find episode 3. That's the episode that I'm on, and I hope you enjoy it. So what did I make then with this assemblage of RC components? I think it's going to be obvious what I made to everyone. I made a boat. Well, I made a fan boat. I was modeling it off one of those, one of those things you see like in, in like the swamps in America, and like the bayous, the little air boats with the flat bottoms on them, powered by a fan. Made one. So this, it does seem strange, I admit, but when I talk through it, I think it makes more sense. I had a bunch of RC components. I had a battery, I had motor. Key thing with the motor, it would only spin in one direction, which you can see on my lovely labeling from where I soldered it. This is a counterclockwise rotating motor. I happen to have a counterclockwise rotating propeller line around to use with it. I had the little mounting guide for the prop. I also happen to have a little RC servo, and you can't see it in here, but I have the RC receiver, and I've got a remote. So I was trying to think, what can I use, what can I make with all these pieces? And then for some reason this just popped into my head, which it makes sense because the prop only spins one way, so I couldn't reverse the prop, or say if I was thinking of making a little car with these motors. But if I have have two of these happen to both spin counterclockwise, all soldered up. So if I want to use them as was, I wouldn't be able to have, you know, things that they would need to spin in opposite directions. They won't spin in the same direction, things like that. So yeah, this just ended up being what I made. And you know what? Surprisingly, it works, which I will show you next. Okay, welcome to my bathroom. Something I never thought I'd say on this channel. Anyway, let's see how she works. Oh, this is so ridiculous. I love it. So I can't really. It does steer, but it's kind of hard to steer it in here because I don't have a lot of space. But you can see I really need to take it out into some bigger water. But it works. It can fly around. And it can sort of steer. I think I need to put some ballast in the back of it as well. I think the nose is plowing down into the water a bit, but hey, it works. So I hope you guys have enjoyed watching this. I know this is literally not what the title of the video said it was going to be. Well, maybe not the initial project you thought it was going to be me making, but this is what we get. So I'm gonna go try and find some bigger water to film this in. Maybe you might see some B-roll of me flying it around a little lake or something if I find one somewhere. So yeah, I hope you liked watching this video. Don't forget, if you like this, to give me a like, subscribe, check out the other videos on my channel. And as always, if you like the work I'm doing, you'd like to help support me making bigger, better projects in the future, you can find the link in the description to my Patreon. And yeah, see you in the next one, guys. Thanks for watching.